Welcome to the Turning Lemons into Lemonade podcast. Each week, your host, Amy Mewborn, business strategist and advisor, will bring you the stories of how successful women entrepreneurs turn their tragedies into triumphs to create the businesses that are changing the world today. And now, your host, Amy Mewborn.
Niki Riga's lifelong dream was to open a studio. In kindergarten, she stated matter-of-factly that she would be a dance teacher, and in high school, she started saving for her future studio. When she moved to California from Alaska, she fell in love with barre, and the studio in her head began to develop into what it is today. She built Flex Fusion, based on a place where clients could get multiple fitness modalities and provide a real sense of community and support. Welcome, Niki. Thank you so much for doing this again, because you're one of mine, but more on me. I spilled some water here on this laptop and lost 15 episodes. So thanks so much. I want you to start today by telling our listeners how you got started in your business.
Well, first of all, I'm always happy to talk to you. So if you were to lose this one, I would film it again. There would be no problem. I actually knew I was going to start a studio in kindergarten. As you know, I was 5 years old and I told my dance teacher, I'm going to own a dance studio. And she said, sweetheart, you don't want to do that. You just want to dance. You don't want to own. It's terrible. Bless her little heart. But that apparently didn't deter me, because I went through every step in life was to get here. I taught dance in high school. My only job has really ever been in a dance studio for the most part. So I taught dance all through high school, majored in dance and business in college. And when they didn't have the class I was looking for, I went to the admin and was like, look, I want to create this home study course basically. And I created a class called Studio Ownership, found a textbook, like built this whole class for me and other dancers to take. Yeah. Did this, like created my own homework. I don't know what's wrong with me. And started managing a studio in college. And then the studio director left because she had a family emergency. So I got like a trial run of owning a studio. From there, I moved here to California, found barre, fell in love, and got my MBA in small business management and entrepreneurship. And here I am now. So it's been a very curated process. I did not fall into this.
I do not know any other entrepreneurs or business owners that actually had a process that they followed. Honestly, most of them since high school, but since they were 5, that's a little bit like abnormal and let's say high achiever.
Always. The word to describe me growing up was precocious. Always. Every meeting I ever had with any of my instructors or any of my teachers, they would tell my mom, Niki's really precocious. She acts like a little grown up. And that's why all of my friends have always been, 10 to 15 years older than me, because I'm just not I'm just way ahead. I'm an old soul. I know what I'm going for. So every step I've been like my little checklist going through, like, okay, I've completed that and now I shall start my business. So this has been a long time coming. But it's given me lots of time to think about what it would look like. So that's kind of fun too.
I love the word precocious. I think that's such a great word. I was actually at a junior league meeting the other night, and we were talking about what a lot of us were like as kids. And I don't know about you, but my parents always got a note from my teachers saying, Amy finishes her work and then she goes and wants to help everyone else do their work, whatever. So I'm guessing
Totally.
we're very similar.
Totally. That's funny.
So what has been your biggest struggle in owning your business or growing your business?
My biggest struggle is that I am in Silicon Valley, California. So my rent is crazy, right? My rent is $11,000 a month, which is insane. Yeah. But my payroll is also $11,000 a month because cost of living here is so high. So my fixed expenses have been in the 20s since I opened. And that doesn't give you a whole lot of wiggle room to make mistakes. I knew from day one that I was either going to make it or I was going to basically go bankrupt, because you only have so much time to flounder before you lose everything. So I think my biggest challenge has just been the fact that it's so expensive here. And opening a new business takes time, right? It takes an average of a year to see that return on investment. And we didn't have a year. We had to move faster than that. Luckily we did.
Yeah.
But it was really scary. I couldn't sleep for months. Definitely.
I know that because I actually got a lot of those texts at 3:00 or 4:00 in the morning.
Bless your heart.
So when you launched your business, you're saying that your expenses were almost $22,000 a month, correct?
Out of the gate, just day one. By the time there's always that rent abatement, but ours was only for 3 months, and permitting took so long. Permitting here is a nightmare, that we were already paying rent 2 weeks before we started before we started running classes. So I had a backup plan. I had a line of credit that would get me through 2 months of expenses. I haven't used it yet. I need to knock on wood for that. I haven't used it. It just sits there as my little security blanket. But man, we didn't have any time to learn on our feet. We had to succeed. That was the only option. And that's what we did.
And what's really funny about that is that there are so many studios that if you told them that they were going to make $20,000 or $25,000 a month gross revenue, they would think that they had been wildly successful. But for you, that wasn't even breaking even.
That is not acceptable. That is an expensive hobby if I make $25,000 a month. And there were a couple months in a row that my husband, who, is the best, was paying my teachers out of his own payroll. We paid payroll out of my husband's income 3 times probably at the beginning, because it had to come from somewhere. But my husband's a saint. And I would be laying in the fetal position, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't do this. And he would sit there and pet my hair and be like, you can do this. It's going to be fine. It's no big deal. We've got it in the bag. Meanwhile, I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? So there were some scary months for sure.
It's funny that you say that, because I always tell people exactly the same thing, that when I first opened my studio, I left a 6-figure job. I went and, I was the primary breadwinner in our household. I gave up my income. I went and opened the studio. And for the first 2 to 4 weeks, I came home every single night and I would put my head on my husband Mike's chest and I would cry. And I would say, oh my goodness, I think I just destroyed our entire financial future. I'm so sorry.
I know. Yes. I know that feeling very well. I remember it well.
Yeah. Having a supportive spouse, there is nothing at all like having a supportive spouse.
Oh my goodness. He is still, we call him the other half of Flex Fusion. He doesn't do anything in the business itself per se, but he is my maintenance man and he is my cheerleader. And those are both very important to have.
And he's actually there in the studio a lot, because I know seeing in social media, there's often pictures of him in class or, at events.
Some of that is dragged. He is forced to class. Yeah. He has to take class twice a week, because I tell him I'm not going to be the only one working out in this relationship. So last night it was his first Pilates class that he's ever taken. And I was like, how was class, babe? He's like, that was so hard. Mean. I was like, yeah, it is hard.
Well, I don't know about Brian, but my husband, Mike, has the most inflexible hips. And so in our house, I actually have a Pilates reformer, and every once in a while I'll put him on there and he's like, that's just not fair. It's just like this torture device.
Good for them.
Yes, it absolutely is. So tell me about the worst thing or the worst day that you've ever had in your business.
Oh my gosh. The worst day. There's been a couple, and I love my studio, but there's been some bad days. Definitely some of them have involved, like we mentioned at the beginning, where I just couldn't pay payroll that day. And the expression robbing Peter to pay Paul. Yes. I was Peter at least 3 times. So that was terrible. Yeah. I think the one that comes to mind quickly is when I had a client completely lose herself and just explode all over me, basically over a Groupon deal. I no longer use Groupon. And the main reason is that because Groupon tends to bring in people who want something for nothing. So she had a complete and utter meltdown because her Groupon's expired. And I I told her that there was nothing we could do. The Groupon expired. She used 6 classes out of her 10 pack, so it was just 4 classes short. I offered her to let her use the value towards another class package, and she had a complete and utter temper tantrum. Yelled at me, yelled at my employee, threatened us, and I seriously remember locking the doors after she left, crying and thinking, what am I doing? Why is this happening to me? Why did I sign up for this? Because it's not fun to be mentally abused or yelled at or, any of that. And I've been working, I'm a pretty sensitive person. So I've been really trying to learn how to separate myself from, say, a nasty review or a client having a temper tantrum, and trying to remember, hey, that's on her.
Yeah.
She brought that into my studio. This is not a reflection of something I did. And that has been really hard for me, because at the beginning I was so tied to Flex Fusion, and I still am. I'm definitely not perfect at removing myself from the business. But at the beginning, every single comment I would take as an attack on myself. But the 5-star reviews, of which, our Yelp page is nothing but 5 stars.
Right.
But there were 2 1-stars that were removed due to harassment. But those 2 1-stars that were written by the same person, mind you, who had never taken a class, those killed me. And the 65 5-star reviews were just so I'm working on focusing on the 65 5 stars and not on the 1 stars.
So I have a business coach that I have paid for a number of years, and he talks a lot about owl brain versus wow brain. And so often we look at our lives and we look at the things we haven't achieved yet that we wanted to, or the things that we've done that didn't work out like we wanted them to. And it's almost like we assume those elements as our identity. And the things that we do so well are the things that we just kind of poo-poo, and we're like, oh yeah, well, that's just I just did that. And you just described, I think, one of the big challenges as a business owner is that you're the leader of your business, and it's really easy to allow a lot of those things that happen to affect your mindset. And unfortunately, it starts to kind of affect the team as well.
Totally. It becomes everybody's thought process. Then you're then afraid of the conflict, as opposed to just knowing that with a studio of 400 people, every once in a while, someone's going to be unhappy. And that doesn't negate the 399 happy people.
I will tell you that I found as a studio owner that so often people used Yelp as kind of like a threat. Well, if you don't do this, I'm going to go to Yelp. And so I always tell studio owners now that the only way to combat that is really to have so many amazing reviews that when someone does go to Yelp and give you that 1-star review, they normally look crazy because they're normally super emotional as they're writing it.
Yeah, they're screaming.
Yeah. So you can actually kind of look at those reviews and be like, yeah, that's probably not really representative of the business.
It's probably on them. Totally. Someone was having a bad day that day.
Yeah. So tell me, what has been the most fulfilling thing about owning your business?
That one's easy. My members have just changed my life. These people are the best. I got so lucky on my community. It was really important to me to build a community into Flex. It's the first line of my business plan, is that this is going to be a community-centered studio, because so many boutique studios can feel kind of cold or a little clicky. Snooty. Yeah, so clicky. And a lot of the studios that I had taught in had been all of those things, clicky and cold, and you go there, you pay $30 to work out, and then you leave. Yeah. And I didn't want that. So I've been kind of joking that we are a transplant haven at Flex Fusion. We attract people who are new to the area because so many of our reviews talk about how friendly we are and how people have met their best friends and how people have met their spouses, and because we are really uplifting. And recently I had 2 of my most popular teachers quit on the same day. They went to open their own studio and they quit out of the blue, and it shocked me. And I had been afraid of this. I'd heard it through the grapevine. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my clients. I thought I was going to lose everybody. Brian, bless his heart, had like inspirational posters all over the house. I seriously thought I was going to lose my business. And then the text messages started rolling in from my clients being like, hey, that was shady, and we're on your team, and we're not going anywhere. And I realized that that community I had built, that I had uplifted and created, and they were like my little children, now were uplifting me. They like rallied around me, like the buffalo that backed themselves in. They had backed themselves in to protect me, which was really emotional for me to know that I had built this community that was now supporting me instead of the other way around. So I got really lucky on part of it. And then I also really consciously built that. And so I got to kind of reap those rewards of a community that's so tight knit that we can lose our two most popular instructors and then be like, hey, that's a bummer. I really like those teachers, but we're okay. We trust you. You'll come back. And I would bring them these new teachers and they'd be like, yes, this is perfect. We're good to go. They just trusted me to pull them through. So the community, 100% hands down, the members make it worth it.
So one of the things that I know really sets your studio apart from just about any other studio I've ever seen anywhere in the world, honestly, is the events and the fact that you are constantly doing member appreciation events, doing bar teas, and all of the things that you do to really foster that community. What would you say has really helped bring everyone together? Is it the classes? Is it the events? What is it that has really made these people so fiercely loyal, not just to you, but to each other?
I think the best thing we do is we have, I'm going to share my secret. We have a very choreographed process for new clients. A new client walks through the door, they meet my desk person, which we call bartenders at the studio. They meet my bartender. My bartender has this very specific list, and they introduce them to the teacher. The teacher introduces them to the person sitting next to them. And we start every single class at Flex with introduce yourself to your neighbor. And we end every single class with tell your neighbor they did a good job. So at the beginning of class, you're sitting there kind of awkwardly. You're the new girl, which I was the new girl constantly. When I moved to California, I had no friends. I didn't know how to make friends as an adult. And nobody would talk to me. So I was just feeling kind of lonely. And that was really important to me to prevent at Flex. So by starting every class with, hey, new girl, this is Amy. You and Amy have this in common. Amy, will you take this new client through class and, help her out and show her what to do? And then I always turn that around and say, hey, new client, Amy has the best form ever. You're going to be in such good hands. She's here all the time. You guys are going to get along so well. So I've already kind of laid that foundation that you are going to be friends. I don't put the new girl or the new man next to an introverted, quiet client. I have a very specific group of usually founders who have been with me since the beginning that I know will sell Flex for me. And I know they'll take them under their wing to the point where a couple weeks ago, it was our new teacher. And before my dance class, I had a group of clients, there were probably 15 of them, and they were all sitting sitting in a circle before class, chatting. Oh, my little heart exploded. But there was one client who is pretty shy, and I know she wants to make friends, but she's introverted. And so I locked eyes with one of my clients. Her name's Sarah. She's a teacher. I locked eyes with Sarah, and then I gestured to the woman standing behind her. And she knew that was me being hey, look right there.
Take her under.
Brought her in. Yeah, she sat her down, and that meant that client had a buddy. And that was so important. So the community at Flex is not on accident. It is very, very curated, but it feels really organic because it is organic. We're not forcing friendships. People will meet each other, and then you find things in common, which is nice.
Well, the definition of introverted is not necessarily someone that's shy. It's someone that maybe doesn't thrive in large groups.
Mm-hmm.
And people are often surprised to find out that I'm actually very, very introverted, that I'm not shy at all. If you and I are talking one-on-one, I will tell you everything you would ever ask about me, but I'm not going to be the girl that would walk into a room of 18 people that I didn't know and be like, "Hi, I'm Amy." You know? And people don't realize how just flat out scary it can be to walk into a room where you look around and it feels like everyone else knows each other and everyone else is friends and you're the outsider.
Mm-hmm.
So you have taken your procedures and created a very specific process to curate that experience for your clients.
Totally. Because it has to work all the time.
Yeah.
And I know that I hear from clients, like I do it a little more often than my teachers do. So we have a staff meeting coming up, so that's going to be reminded.
Yeah.
But remembering that Flex is community first, community first, community first, and knowing that is so important to our mission.
Yeah.
Keeps us on track with building that community. Once I start to forget that, because parties are a lot of work, events are a lot of work. Mm-hmm. You don't make any money from them.
Mm-hmm.
So they can feel from a bottom line standpoint like a waste of energy or resources. But if you go back to the mission, the community first, they're key. They're so important.
Yeah. So I know that in your life, you actually have kind of like a secondary career where you leave for a month or so in the summer. And tell me, how on earth did you create a business that allowed you to leave the state and go do your second career? You can tell us all about it, that the business still runs without you, even if it doesn't run as well as it runs with you.
So I leave for closer to 2 months. I leave for 6 to 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I commercial fish for salmon. So I have a very duplicitous lifestyle. I'm either covered in salmon scales or I'm dressed in $400 worth of workout clothes. Like there is no in between for me. And it happened out of desperation the first year. I wasn't planning on going home, but my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 weeks before I opened. And so 3 weeks after Flex Fusion opened its doors, I left because she wasn't going to be able to be in the boats. She was originally covering for me. She obviously wasn't going to be able to. I didn't want her to go through that alone. So I turned to my bartender who was sitting next to me and was like, "How do you feel about running this bad boy for 6 weeks?" And it was terrifying, but it lived. The processes were already in place. Yeah. And I think the craziest thing is I have really limited service. I don't have my normal cell phone. I have very limited cell phone service. Like we're talking bare bones here. Sometimes it doesn't work. If it rains, it doesn't work. It's always raining in coastal Alaska. We have Wi-Fi that can go down for 3 days at a time. Just nothing. There are no cities. People are like, "Oh, I literally live on the edge of like the Pacific Ocean in a cabin." And so I think having processes and really trusting your staff is key, and them being well trained, because I don't work for 6 to 8 weeks. I will jump in where I am needed.
Sure.
But for the most part, I don't do much. It's amazing.
So one thing that I am always surprised about with your business is your social media. I can never tell, as well as I know you, I can't tell which posts are posted by the owner and which posts are posted by her team. How on earth did you end up taking what you know and what you do and downloading that to a team member in such a way that they actually can represent Flex on social media almost like they were you?
I think so Flex's voice is my voice, and I am a little dry. I'm kind of sarcastic. Everything is kind of tongue in cheek, and Flex's voice online and in person matches that. Well, I think I attract other rather dry individuals, so they can kind of take my voice and run with it, which has been nice. Flex is supposed to be pretty fun. We don't take ourselves too seriously. My rules for social media is it has to be positive. We're a positive message studio. We don't there's no body shaming. There's no self shaming. It has to be positive. We try not to cuss, even though I have kind of a terrible mouth. No cussing, only positive. And from there, just don't take yourself very seriously. And it's been surprisingly successful. Every once in a while, I'll see something. Like I had a bartender who posted something, and it didn't have like a bad word. This word would be allowed on the radio, but I still was like, went in and quickly changed the word to seat. So that will tell you what the word was. The word became seat very quickly. Because even if I tend to have a bad mouth, it doesn't mean that my brand will have a bad mouth. That's not ladylike. But for the most part, they've got very general guidelines.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me about how you really went about building your brand, because I know that you've actually been approached by people to franchise and everything. And I will say that for an independent studio, I believe that you have, I think, one of the best looking and most cohesive brands of just about any that I've ever seen. How did you do that?
I do get asked probably monthly if I would be willing to franchise. And it's always really flattering. And my ego really wants to do it. My perfectionism side knows that is not where my life is headed. I'm pregnant right now, and I just don't think I can handle that whole nightmare. That's a whole other story. But my branding, I don't actually know how it became so successful. I've just stuck to my original mission, right? With the community and the positivity and the multimodality. We're a multimodality studio with a bunch of different class styles, and the dry humor. And that has really, it just keeps feeding into what we do. The other side of that is that I am surrounded by franchises, and I'm surrounded by big names. I mean, I have SoulCycle and Club Pilates on the same street as me, and Core Power Yoga. We're all on the same street. It was just a do or die. I got a lot of my inspiration from SoulCycle's branding and Lululemon's branding, where they would put the t-shirts with their brand on the back. We do a lot of branded tank tops at my studio, a lot. Usually that has something funny on them. And people wear them because it's funny. Like we have our new shirts, or we had shirts that were really successful last year that said, "Let's talk about flex, baby," with the little flex icon. People were obsessed with those shirts. I still hear people be like, "Oh, you're the flex shirts." And I'm like, yes, we are. So I let our tank tops kind of do the branding for us. And after that, I stick to the brand. Everything in the studio is teal, gray, and white. Everything is really clean. I don't do a lot of fluff. We keep it pretty gender neutral. And we keep that kind of dry sense of humor and community just wrapped through it. And sticking true to the mission has really made the branding very clear.
So those tanks, let's talk about the tanks, because I remember when you first opened the studio, you did a tank, and I think it had a little map of California. And it said California, and it was so cute. And the thing about those tanks is you're getting paid for the tanks, and all of these people are out all over your city wearing your branded stuff, marketing your business just because of how cute and how catchy, and I guess in a lot of ways how dry they are. So
paid marketing, you can't go wrong. I designed the tanks myself. I had to learn how to use Adobe Illustrator, which is not a particularly friendly program. There's a lot of Googling involved. But I don't pay very much for those tank tops. I don't sell them for as much as I potentially could. Because they are still a marketing tool. I sell them for $20. Members get a discount. And those things walk all over the city. I love it. We're near downtown, and we're also near a bunch of residential communities, and people will say, hey, I see your members all the time walking to class, and you know they're mine because they're covered in flex fam. I mean, their sweatshirts and their pants and their bags, everything says flex fam everywhere. And so they're my little, we call them our little flex ants, walking down the sidewalk wearing my letters. But, you know, I was in a sorority. I know how it feels to wear your colors. You know, people want to show what they belong to. And that goes back to the community idea. I sell out of most flex tanks the second I bring them in. People pre-order.
Yeah.
We're doing sweatshirts. We always do what we call flex fleece. Everything is flex something at my studio. And the flex fleece are coming in probably next month. And so we were voting on the color because that gets people excited. We're voting on the color, and then whatever color wins is the color I'll bring in. People were literally like, I would like a green in a size medium, please. And I was like, don't. She's like, charge my card on file. I was like, I'm not tracking who bought what. I don't even order these yet.
Sure.
But that it works. I highly recommend it.
So
we don't sell like Aloe or Lulu. We don't sell any of that. We sell flex tanks. Period.
That's amazing. Have you ever done a social media challenge where people had to take pictures all over the town or the country in their flex tanks?
We call it Flex Anywhere. Our hashtag is Flex Anywhere. And I get the coolest. People bring their flex tanks on vacation. Like, I have a woman who is sailing around the world right now. She's one of my favorite little founder members. And she's already sent me 3 pictures of her Flex Anywhere in a plank on her boat or doing a bar pose next to her sail. I've had pictures taken all over the world. People in splits, people in a chair pose. They're bringing their flex tanks on vacation. And we know that when you're packing, you know, you only have so much you get to bring when you're going to Europe, and the flex tank makes the cut, and that just makes my little heart so happy. So the Flex Anywhere has definitely worked for us very well.
So tell us, what one piece of advice would you give to a woman who wanted to launch a business or grow a business, whether it's a studio or some other type of business? What would you tell her?
I tell everybody, find a mentor. And for me, that was you, right? You have to find a mentor. I always tell anybody in my circle, like, I'm happy to be that person for you, but don't let your ego block you from asking for help, because people like to answer. People like to help. And doing it by yourself is kind of silly, right? Why make a mistake that 7 other studio owners have already made? It's just, it doesn't make any sense. So I, at the very beginning, surrounded myself with mentors. I mean, Fred and Liz, who own Exhale Spa, were 2 of my mentors at the beginning. That's like the top of the bar pyramid. Don't think that because somebody is famous, they won't have time for you. Because if there's something I know about fellow entrepreneurs, it's that we are helpers and we want to help other people. So my number one advice always is get a mentor. And if you can't find one, call me. I'll be your mentor.
I'm so with you. I say that here I am 8 years in after being an entrepreneur, and I still pay for coaches on an annual basis, because I think that as an entrepreneur, sometimes it gets really lonely.
Oh, it does.
And, you know, especially when you have a team, you know, you're a small business owner, but people treat you like you are the man, and you're the person that's like holding them down from accomplishing their goals. You know, and you're like, man, you have no concept of what I just did to get payroll paid for you 2 weeks ago. And you're thinking that I'm driving around in a Maserati and I'm living in a mansion and, you know, my life is perfect, but you have no concept of how many sleepless nights there have been to get there. So
you told me that at the very beginning. I remember you told me to make sure that I don't become the man, because once your studio starts to see success, people automatically assume that, oh, this is like one of those big franchise deals. Like they're paying me $159 a month, and they're doing the math in a class of 20, and they're thinking, oh my gosh, this girl is rolling in money. And so you had really great advice to show people the work. I post on Flex's Instagram at midnight when I am preparing for a fundraiser the day before. I post when I'm mopping the floors. I post when I'm having a bad day. And I think that advice has kept my community super loyal, because they realize I am in no way the man. Right. I have no idea what I'm doing. I am just winging it like the rest of them. And I am real and I am vulnerable. And I ask for that in return. Like, if you're real with me, I'll be real with you, and we will just get through this life together. So that's another really great piece of advice that I learned from you. Don't let them treat you like the man, because we're not. Just
it's tough.
Look like it.
Yeah, it's tough, because I mean, everyone thinks that you have made it because you're running this business, and they have no concept sometimes about all of the blood, sweat, and tears that go in. And, you know, there are days that you go home and you're like, wow, this has been the best day ever. And then there are days that you go home and you maybe have owned your business, 3 years almost?
Almost.
Okay. So, you know, you probably still go home and you're like, oh my gosh, this is just so much harder than I thought it was ever going to be.
We call it fix fusion, FIX fusion, when it's being really terrible. I'll text my husband and be like, oh, fix fusion. I hate this studio. I wish it could be flex fusion again. Oh, why is it always fix fusion? Like two different studios, flex fusion and fix fusion. Fix fusion is the worst. It shows up about quarterly, once a quarter, fix fusion.
That's awesome. So tell me, where can our listeners find you?
I am pretty prolific on social media, thanks to being a millennial. I'm an older millennial, but that's still right in my wheelhouse. So we're on Instagram and Facebook, whatever the first one is, right? Instagram.com/FlexFusionStudios. The studio is plural because we have 2 rooms. Same with Facebook, Flex Fusion Studios. We're on there all the time, so you will see us all the time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your friendship. I feel so fortunate to know you and have worked with you, and you continue to amaze all of us, I think, every day with your grace and how you just continue to be such an amazing young woman. So thanks.
You are the sweetest. No, thank you. I'm happy to talk to you anytime. We've been through some stuff, Amy.
Yes, we have. And I will tell you that anytime you text me, it always actually makes my day, just because, just because we worked together at some point doesn't mean that we don't end up becoming friends. And really rooting for each other and wanting just amazing things for each other. So hopefully you and Brian and now little Riga will come and visit us here in Vegas soon.
I know. We need to visit before I'm too big to fly. Ugh. I don't know anything about that side. I feel firmly confident in studio ownership side, but that other journey, I'm not there yet. I have to read more books.
I'm guessing Brian will kind of take the lead there. I think he's just so excited.
He already read his daddy book, so it's up to me now. I'm behind.
You'll catch up. I know you will. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Today we talked about journaling and goal setting to grow your business. If you would like our free template that you can download to write your goals and keep track of everything that's happening in your business, you can get it in the show notes at lemonadepodcast.com.
Thank you for listening to Turning Lemons into Lemonade, where women go for support and encouragement to hear how other women business owners turn their setbacks into successes to create 6- and 7-figure businesses. We look forward to seeing you next week.